confidently say, notwithstanding the machinations of Hakainde Hichilema and his UPND zealots to try and destroy the mighty Patriotic Front, they have failed lamentably, and the Patriotic Front still stands strong. Just imagine a political party that has been pursued as vigorously as the Patriotic Front has been pursued by the government machinery over the last 3 years, and yet we still have people going around everywhere in the country holding themselves high, calling themselves by the positions to which they were elected in the last elections of the Patriotic Front. This shows you that the spirit of the Patriotic Front still lives, and no doubt, it is growing.
Maybe the argument that one would present to the current party is that while you're saying the party is strong, but we still have issues around the presidency. While you have, again, obviously without any prejudice, you've got what is being termed as the Mao sample-led PF. So one seemingly would indicate that probably there's a split within the party. Is the party intact from that perspective, Honorable Lubinda?
Tomorrow, chairman for Central Province.
That's right.
I'm sorry for using him as an example, but because he's the one hosting me, I want to abuse him.
Please.
Chairman for Central Province would just wake up tomorrow and decide, all right, I'm president of the Patriotic Front. Does that make a change? Does that change anything? No, it doesn't. Mao Sampa declared himself president of the Patriotic Front. Which members of the Patriotic Front subscribed to his leadership? I know of none. There was a time when there were people like Chavinga and people like a few fellows who were following him. But in the recent past, what have we heard? That even those who were following him are now against him. So one wonders, he's president of which people? You can't be president only of a name. You have to be a president of an organization. And that organization must have well-established structures, and those structures must have people who recognize you and answer to your leadership. As we stand now, if you come here in Kabwe and ask our chairman in a ward, you go to Makululu and ask him, your chairman for Makululu, yes, who is your president? I bet you none of them will say they subscribe to Mao Sampa. They will all say they subscribe to the party that is led by one Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu. That is the Patriotic Front. The wishes of Hakainde, obviously, is to confuse people so that people believe that the Patriotic Front is split. It is not split. We know that we have matters in court, and you recall that I once said, and I was quoted in the press as having said, it is now the judiciary that is on trial. It is not the Patriotic Front. It is the judiciary that is on trial. It is the Chief Justice, whom I mentioned, as being put in the dock, because you cannot have matters of such public interest dragging on in court for years. People know that political activism must not be put to a stop because of the judicial processes. Political activism must continue. And in a democracy, like you quoted yourself, in a democracy, for a democracy to be viable, for a democracy to function, divergent views must be allowed to exist.
Just before I move away from this subject so that we can tackle a whole lot of other issues that we have on our plate, and in reference to former President Edgar Lungu, who served this country, obviously, with the mandate he was given, we did see him, actively go on a break or retire, and he came back and, according to what he said, to serve the country and the party. There are those that vied to stand for presidency of the party. Maybe give us clarity in terms of who currently now is the president of the PF and with which mandate, because the former president did retire in that position, but then he came back to active politics. Because I think this is the argument that while it's the UPND is refusing that, no, actually the issues happening in the Patriotic Front, it is of their own doing. Let me get clarity on this matter.
Had President Edgar Lungu resigned his position after the loss of elections in 2021, the person who took over would not have been referred to as acting president.
That's right.
I was never ever president of the Patriotic Front. I held the position of acting president. Acting because I was the vice president.
Yes.
And in the absence of the president, for whatever reason, the vice president acts.
Yeah.
In that particular case, President Edgar Lungu had tendered a resignation to the Central Committee of the party, which resignation was not accepted
by the
Central Committee. And remember that a member of an organization cannot just tender a resignation and run away. The resignation ought to be accepted.
Why wasn't it accepted? Maybe just out of
it was not accepted because the members of the Central Committee felt there is no reason and there is no provision in the Constitution which allows you to abandon ship between two conferences. You can go back, take leave, because we want you to rest. However, you shall hold the position of president until such a time that we convene a general conference where you as president shall hand over to the next person who would have been elected as your successor. So there was no vacancy whatsoever at presidency. Those who expressed interest were the ones who were saying, look, ladies and gentlemen, we have agreed that we're going to have a conference. And we want to register our presence. We want our party members to know that we are available for consideration. But it was not to fill in a vacancy because that vacancy hadn't fallen on yet. It would only fall one day before holding of the conference. That is when the vacancy would have occurred. So there was no vacancy whatsoever.
And is this general conference anytime fast approaching? Because I'm sure there's also been, issues around your general conference.
We held our last general conference in May 2021.
Okay.
And in accordance with our constitution, we have to have another one within 5 years.
Right.
So certainly, before the next elections of 2026, before the next general elections, we as a party are obliged by the Zambian constitution to hold another conference where we shall elect another president along with a new central committee.
Right. Before I turn my attention to Honorable Katotobwe and Honorable Kamfwaya, Vipsa, the Patriotic Front now, seemingly one would be thinking now, it is being clothed under the umbrella of the United Kwacha Alliance. And we also have seen a bit of some issues around the United Kwacha Alliance, as we know it as UKA. And also it is bordering on the issue of the presidency in relation to the 2026 elections. How did you as a Patriotic Front, first of all, align yourself with UKA in its form as an alliance, which already we've seen that there's a lot of issues around this UKA, especially again from those who are ruling, and there's this go-between about them trying to destabilize this UKA. But we've seen the president now riding on UKA, that's PF president, and yourselves as PF. Tell us about this.
Thank you. Thank you, Herman. I'm very delighted that I'm going to answer this question here in the town known to be a political town, where many political parties were birthed.
Indeed. And
let me put this clear, and I hope that the other radio stations that are syndicating can also carry this message countrywide. There has been this unfortunate argument by some members of UKA that the Patriotic Front was invited to the alliance. I want to be very categorical. The initiator of interaction amongst opposition political parties was the then acting president of the Patriotic Front. Yeah. Yours truly, given Lubinda.
That's right.
I was the initiator of those interactions with opposition political parties. I hosted a number of those meetings. And in those meetings, we invited almost all the members of the current UKA were attending those meetings. And it was in those meetings where I stated very clearly to my colleagues that I was alive to the fact that the Patriotic Front was the largest grouping amongst the alliance members.
Yeah.
And because of that, I suggested that the chairmanship of our meetings shall rotate.
Okay.
I didn't want to take the chairmanship. I said it shall be rotatory. And we were very clear in our minds that we are not ready yet to call ourselves an alliance. We were not ready. We wanted us to continue as a loose gathering of political parties. So for anyone to insinuate that the Patriotic Front was invited, they're being terribly untruthful. And one of them was made this statement quite often, is my dear sister, President of NDC, Sabo Imboela. I would like her to stop this. I plead with her to stop. And I'm saying this in all earnest. I plead with her to stop misinforming the people. Because Savoy Imboela was one of those who actually was invited by myself to come to our second meeting.
Okay.
She should not turn things around and say we were invited, because we were not. We were the initiators of this alliance. Now that this thing has been consummated to the extent that it has been consummated and we call ourselves an alliance, I don't think that there is any political party that should be considered to be shielded by this hooker. No. Once you go into an alliance, what you are doing is to say, look, we are equal partners. But remember that even in equality, there is leadership. Even in equality, there is seniority. Okay? Now, no one, again, should assume that the Patriotic Front owes its survival to an alliance. No. And I wouldn't even subscribe to the notion that any other political party that is a member of UCA should subscribe their existence to UCA. No. Had that been the case, then you wouldn't have the alliance. We are independent political parties that have agreed to come together because we think that our vision is common and we can develop a common strategy to achieve our vision.
So what vision does this UCA seek to achieve? I think, and I'm glad you're here because I want to get this clarity from you, because I think we've read so many things about what intentionally this UCA needed to do. One of them is obviously to dislodge the current party in government. But what initially is the vision of UCA as far as the Zambian people are concerned?
To dislodge the UPND government, the UPND alliance government, to dislodge Hakainde is only but a stepping stone.
Okay.
It is not the ultimate. The ultimate is to give Zambians good governance. That is our vision. And in trying to arrive at that, we ought to do a number of things. Number one, we ought to strategize.
Okay.
Number two, we ought to mobilize. Number three, we ought to win the hearts of the people. Number four, we ought, in 2026, if not sooner, to get rid of that group of people who are creating ill governance, so that then our vision shall be attained, that of providing the governance that we think Zambia so much deserves.
Right.
The uprooting of Hakainde is just but one step in us achieving our vision. We cannot spend our time just for the sake of removing them. No. But that's not our preoccupation. Our preoccupation is to make sure that we emancipate the Zambian people from the yoke of the suffering that they have been introduced to by one Hakainde and his UPND alliance.
Right. Honorable Lubinda, I'll get back to you, obviously. Yes. I also need to turn my attention to Honorable Kamfwaya and Honorable Katotobwe. And I'm glad that Honorable Kamfwaya obviously also served in government as well. One of the many reasons being propagated with regards to the suffering of the many Zambians is that it's all due to the bad governance. PF left us where we are. Debt and a whole lot of other things have been hit on the PF. And you do note that even when the current president sits, even when he speaks, he is never short of making reference to the fact that we're where we are because of the Patriotic Front. I want to get your take, Honorable Kamfwaya, in relation to how that you are the ones that have been blamed for having left the country in the state in which the UPND inherited it, empty coffers, as it were.
Mr. Machacha, thank you so much. That's a very important question.
Thank you.
I think now, for we the Zambian people, in particular here in Central Province, here in Kabwe, the best way of greeting each other is Mwachuleni. And this Mwachuleni is not peculiar to Kabwe or Central Province. It's a nationwide problem. But Vice President Waf Mamkulandati, tumufunye chechi eulekele bad governance. Ngatwamufumia tukalete good governance. Moneni mwebena Central Province, mfweni mwebena Zambia. abantu baletera ba PF bakamwala tebo fina maleti ba PF bakamwala ba corrupt ba FIC ile bafunisha report ni shiva Edgar Lungu bali pampando report ya kulekelesha ko yali ni 2 billion kwacha report ya kulekelesha ko hapo abaturefu myaba abalera ndaba ba vice president turefu mepo baisha pampando na rampera kwa mafiga ya FIC iyafumine number 1 ba FIC bali mfire n'ensoni yokuilemba mu makwacha baisa ifumia 2.8 billion United States dollars empia shafumine muno chalo ukupitira muntu wampani utwalekana nabantu abalekana ukumufufu ntungu ukufumia muchalo ukutwala okobasumira empia shakwe 2.8 billion kwacha na mwai time shapali 26 kwacha ya ili anshita na lero ni kwa dola ili 5.6 mulesa ngani 68 billion kwacha mafa impia shogai ba UPNG shafu echo ndera ndati ba UPNG baiba bantu ngata uli mu buteko nga uli mu PF wachitako participate muri ifimairo nokukoti ku police kukoti na mkona na mujera nomba abatababekata nangu ba FIC bamwe bakateka ati abapishenda babeshimye abana tamwaka yomfu amashina ayafumya nangu mupunde shana ati twebeni abaseshinda kama tamwaka yomfu amashina mula ndushi nicho ndwa UPNG mamona pafuma 2.8 billion dollars nifika nshinde mwashira 61 billion kwacha ero pafumine 61 billion recently pafumine 13.5 billion kwacha nomba muli 3 years ema figures ndeni ba FIC ayo kuti mwatila kuli good governance anyway but uwine obuteko kumubwine obwibere ndara mashonzeshi noku chita externalize because ba FIC balanda clearly shindalama shilafuma muchalo through what is known as illicit financial flows ukuse short pia ukwabula konka inkonka na amafundi ubwine obuteko yebwa ishireshishari amataba ngamwali yomfa kwa amataba yali bine ba PF bali mutira bakabwara basha amataba ba PF basha amataba mu matala ayenge ayakuti abena Kabwe Valeria na bena Lusaka na bonse abena Zambi ba UPNG baisa shitisha
abati tekubikata pakana munjere abati echo bashitishishe mnando wakwe bati mwalishire mu apanga chipanga uko mwashitishe amataba nomba takuhalindira amashakwera bali so bati tushitisha aya amataba tulipile fila bashire so already bastari fair ko bati ni mwe
effort tumia ba UPNG babufi elo ubufi waba UPNG tabaka pole bantu ichalo wa UPNG ubufi limbi chintu chafwa echo ndeni everef bantu ulupia lwachalo efe rubomba ba machacha ulupia lwachalo lupitira mu National Assembly mwachita approve ndiya mwachita approve ero uteko nomba kwamba ukula pita mulya mwine mulya mwachongele so nina wachongele pwati shitisheni amatabe mpia shiye kuli bafa
so the imunga washira
fyabufi nina ni budgeting shi omwapitire shi yendarama ero utwampani tumotwa restisha ya mataba twampani bale panga felina bakapanga company 4 days later bakapera contract ya kushichajeje amataba but icha isabi pa kuchira mu chipimo ndiyano mbeshita ya fika pale batira ti crunch time bena nomba bafwaye fya kuli fa kuturege bayaleta ubunga nangu bayaleta amataba umwaba poison so the bad governance tete mushicha amataba yali mile ba given Lubinda ya mano ero dijya nomba abana wobensala yabasuma waya nomba mukushita umuri fya kutifive pa yabana bad governance bad temataba ya
tenshibembi
amalight bashitisha amalight ba UPNG ukus amalight ayo tulepanga mucharo chesu bashitisha kuba nabo pako bati aba nabo ama businesses yale enda bweno aba nabo abantu babalera na amalight ero nomba muno mukagwa amalight yale safe 1 hour per day ngayaisa 1 hour mulenje bati mumayanda mwala bameshi mwalasa ngati amenshi tamuli mayanda ngati tamuli amenshi tamuishira tikwalamba makwala sa malwele amalwele ngayaisa muspatala tamuli imiti bali bayabo mu 61 container Na mwaisha wasitema kwa terere ifya ubuteko bwashitomu tibayafisa. Ni bad governance. So kulenda kusapa no fear. Ukulondorola bad governance ngoma batanda wa vice president. Kutinatila tuli nomba mu era of extreme bad governance. Such that ukukonkanya apono ubuteko wa UPND. Icharo chino katuishi. Pantu orede chireshikisi.
Nditai. Ilo shila tingu fuyo kuleba Honorable Katotobwe. Mwalumule fintu fya kutila inengana ikalapa ndeti akati fya palama dwa pitamo Mozambique po wifingu twa pitamo ila shiyalo chedingi twa pitamo nomba bushe no musango nshimo omumule chimwena pamonga wa Patriotic Front mumugesa chipangira Chagwa bwino pantu nandaka yo panombanga mwalanda nga mwatu afikapa ero chichirire pantu alipitire mu mufyaba FIC fumwa nomba how would you as mwebale kabiro ko bati kwena mungwelepo mwise mulunguke bwino efindu no musango chipantu twana ko kumva mali ashayini mulanda buno mbange film watira apaka saka kabunga epokali takutira aho kwena na mwaka shitalero kuti no kuti mwelesa kutika kana film bimu batoleka hapo no mbate fichira ba leta kubunga ubwa national service bwa hebos fyonse fere tango kweba no banish kanshi mu Mozambique nani ugesa turubulo kufuma kumchulo
we mwalanda bwino muchilala to walipitamo na mulanda bwino muri aya mali ashaba FIC to walipitamo na mulanda bwino teko vile nomba ibukisheni lilya kwali chilala ubuteko bwalipo uwa baba given winda watch treasure bwali leshitama right bwamba nokulapera right pamutengo ulya wina ibukisheni ero kwali chilala ubuteko bwenu watch treasure nganga mwayibukisha ba FIC bali landa shani batile shani atabana bebolu pia longa 2 billion kwacha 2 billion aleterere ba PF 2 billion FIC 2 billion kwacha not dollars nomba ngamwaisa bula 61 billion iba ba UPND mwabula 2.8 billion dollars which is 68 billion kwacha mwaisa bula na 13.5 billion kwacha mumyaka enga itatu ishibaiba ero nomba mwaza datyo twabweshe iskeo yabwerera kuri 2 billion abena Zambia ni state baseke nomba ngafira musambirire ba PF ngafira mwasambirire ro mwali mu buteko yale yonse yamasambiriro yale miyafa finshi yale miyafa ukuisa teka bwino abantu tego fine ushe ba PF mwashiri amataba 1.5 million metric tons mu matala chile pilibula chinji elio takwa kabe nino nga uno mwaka ero kulila nina mwalalanga abapina bengi balime chipeshamano pakwati nga balima sana na futi tusa tututili amataba ko isa ku matala ero kukabe chilala bantu bakesesange chilala. That's why ndemi yebero kutila ubu chushi bwabungo buli muno chalo te chilala chilengele ebuwelewele bwaba UPND ebulengele pantu ba UPND abakana kushitisha amataba ayali mwisa mu matala na lero abantu nganga baleshita fyo watchpa bwino
Honorable Katotobwe ndemona pakutendeka I think in preamble mwashitira mwakumyako sana ndemona kuchipo chabena Luapula ndicho kutila ndemona tebena Luapula febeka hiyo abenga bena Zambia chibishi chawikashi high cost of living sana coupled with imitekele palinda kaya patufikile pamonga ba Patriotic Front ba UPND na baletila na chimbi chincha kweba telefano mbokutila lengalungika lyachi yanko alaba PF Kamfwaya chibishamano konka nivaleti so baya kwate dilula baya mefu kumona kutira ubikashi wabena Zambia wabanga bakobwino palinda kai ero sana kubyantanshi uko bale pitira kubyantanshi kupitira mukulunda ko kwandarama ya CDF ushelo bali uko pamonga ichipani cha tekele poero chefuka bero kutekapo numusango sha ule chimwana mukutira byonsa ya mafia nefe bananda bale chita pingesa lungi kwa kupitira mu chipani cha PF pamo na wo mpane na kuchapa
Kamfwaya kulunda profila ndile ba vice president na Hon Lubinda wera tunchalo mulisano buchushi elo buchushi ubuli mchalo te kweba chila la iyo muno region muno Southern Africa region ichilala chali konza but muno Mzambia muno Kabwe na from muno Kabwe tama night yesa 1 hour 1 hour amalight yaya ninshi mwaonaula ubunonshi babonse mnomkaba abali pa market abapango tfitumbwa abachitotwa kocha bonse abachitotu tuno bonse nishimona umulandu tamulesa kama nabantu ubasha tukweta kwebatu teko tukwete tawuposila amano kusakama nabantu ngalamusakama nabantu mfile mwaishwa kwebati ishinoshiku ukubonfya fya isa science ichila watachisa fye ukubonfya science chila moneka tu unomwaka kulese chilala nga mwaishwa tumwa kulese chilala mwaipekana ifi never news by pekedi mrijo kumbi bakweta tamalaiti ngakuya ya kufili mawazi ya 3 ni 3 hours nisho ineyo na ababona abashutu n'abachuchu tikasana kufata tamalaiti yelafi 100% yela ifo kuno kwabeli ashida kwebati kwaliba droughts eilengesho kwebati tukwata amalaiti eilengesho kwebati tukwata chipo drought mchalo yali pitamu te kwebati emwaka fwa kubaila kufye epo Zambia kwatilo buntungwa apelo bitu drought awe ni kuingisana utupita ku drought but mitemo ya kudya fya abantu ubwikashwa abantu ubuteko bulengilamo kumunati abantu bekeleshana chimo chine finaba nesu kubulaya lero bamonati kwaba ifintu fyakosa twala kwata ubwashi kwa light bayasha filabe bati carbon fired power plants kale bachita ban isonde lose bachita ban umlandu carbon eyo naula environment emkwa ilo naulo ubwikashi kwa monse besonde so bakwali ba crusade yakwebati tubwesheko ama carbon levels mwela but abafunya carbon iyo banesu kufyalo ifyanonka abachita contribute high levels of carbon pollution mu environment ifo kuno kuzambia kuno tuchirira mofe mulandu climate change is transboundary ngamwapanga ifyakocha kufyaloko due to industrialization kuno mwalao nole environment kuno unaike environment tufleto abakuntanji sana ukuchita plan properly kwebati kuno ifleto alisunge mfimiti wino environment ife wino itule kwata climate change its effect of industrialization kuba neswa industrialized so Zambia as a country is best positioned for industrialization but instead of industrialization if we are busy trying to export raw material we living for our children ichalo cha kwebati yonse mining sector. When you look at contribution of mining sector to the country's GDP, it's very high. You open a curtain, who owns the mines? There is no Zambia. You go to manufacturing, big problem. You look at the contribution to the country's GDP of manufacturing sector. Manufacturing sector Zambia. So takwa bechalo cha kwebati fyonse ifintu fule fyaba munu yaba nesu abafuma kufyalo kunse awo. Abantu besu must start owning wealth. We must be unapologetic to make you, Bamachacha, be a rich man. Because Zambia is endowed with so much resources. With all the resources we have, we cannot have a country which is relying on foreign direct investment as a major trigger for industrialization. Takwaba. Industrialization is technology. When we have sovereignty in technology, we invest in technology, we start industrialization, we start value addition, mineral beneficiation, then we create sustainable jobs. Not in Shama piecework. General work babombako, general work babombako. When it comes to the cost of living, there's an argument that no, cost of fuel, Murijo and Chimochi. The incomes are different. Kutumu alunda, mtengu wa fuel, ukufumaba 17 kwacha to 30 kwacha. Ama salary tamlundile. Kwa libe fyalo, ukwe fintu fya dola sana. One of the most expensive, I think, towns the Vice President must be Geneva. But the abantu bafule mpie shingi because they must afford. So ngamlefa mwebe ati no murichoni na mu Tanzania fuel na hoya lidula nifi. Mwasa kutanza bale fule shingi. Geneva bale fule shingi. Abantu besu kuno bafula 1p, 1.5 and there are no jobs. They are not sustainable jobs. So you increase the cost of living, you don't increase the people's wages, you actually reduce people's wages. How do you expect the people to survive?
So where do the solutions lie in all these that you've mentioned? And I'm glad you've mentioned that. Kumukufyalo kumbi nangola chingabyo abantu balakolesha kuti bachali kama nomba pamonga the Patriotic Front ero mwe bateka pobuche nomusango nshi akatotobwe fonshi lesa kuli vice president no mole chimuno ko batna ifuture fola ko shaka kuti labena Zambia, they should be the ones to own the mining sector. All these, developmental projects. 60 years of independence, by the way.
It's very simple. It's patriotism. We need to put leaders who are patriotic to the country. We need to put leaders who get happy when they see their citizens enjoying wealth. You can't have leadership which is very happy when people are impoverished. And it shows. This is so-called CDF. In my constituency, CDF is not a game changer. No. CDF cannot build a boarding school.
In its current state?
No, it can't.
Even if you're talking about millions of questions.
No, it can't. The same CDF, I'll give you an example. We had a cholera situation in Lusaka. When we had the cholera situation, the money that was released in Lusaka, did it come from CDF? No. Central government must show up. Central government must go and build hospitals, they must go and build secondary schools, they must go and build road infrastructure. In my constituency, they must come and clean up the channels, give us the relevant infrastructure to survive. CDF is a mere mitigation in terms of just assisting the people to reduce the sufferings of the people. CDF can contribute towards alleviation of suffering, but CDF cannot develop the country. To believe that CDF is developing Zambia is far-fetched. CDF can merely mitigate the suffering of the people in constituencies. But to believe that you've been given CDF, and because largely a lot of people may not understand numbers, you'd think that 30 million can come and do a third road, 50 kilometers or 20 kilometers. It doesn't work.
Right.
Central government must show up and do their part. Central government cannot run away from the responsibility of providing medicines in simple rural health centers, simple hospitals. Central government cannot run away from providing services for their people and say CDF. And the CDF story came just after the first budget. No, there is a bridge which has been washed away CDF. How? What is central government?
So in its current form, it cannot. As far as I think from what I hear from you, it's barely but a mitigating, component in terms of
Uyantanshi. CDF cannot bring Uyantanshi constituency one day,
right.
Let alone Zambia. To bring Uyantanshi, it's an integrated planning by central government.
Right.
The same way PF planned and said, we're going to finish Mungu-Kalabu Road. And Mungu-Kalabu Road is finished. No amount of CDF would have done Mungu-Kalabu Road or Kazungula Bridge. It's just not possible.
Right.
It's not practical.
I want to turn my attention to Honorable Vice President Lubinda, sir. One of the many cries, especially in relation to good governance, is that the opposition has been on record of having complained of issues of trampling on freedom of expression and assembly. We did see recently. We are seeing arrests of I think especially predominantly Patriotic Front members. Others right now are incarcerated based on other issues that we cannot even delve into because those could be in the court process. But obviously, so many of your members have suffered incarceration. Honorable Eng Chanda, for example, just came out of incarceration. So many other opposition political parties. And you've cried foul that, look, I think this in itself is an affront to freedom of expression and assembly. But there's always a comparison again. Every time we talk about these matters, there's always a comparison because people say, no, actually right now what is happening is worse off than it were. I want to get your position, and having served as a Minister of Justice and yourself in that capacity, sir, is the cry genuine as far as upfront to freedom of expression and assembly is concerned, bearing in mind what is currently pertaining in the country?
Thank you. That's a very important question. And it gives me an opportunity to present an analogy. that you cannot judge what you have without comparing it with what you don't have. Hakainde Hijirema, in the run-up to the 2021 elections, constantly alleged that we were very undemocratic. And that is in part how 2.8 million voters went and voted for him. Because he postured like an angel. He told the Zambian people, look, I was arrested on trumped-up treason charges when I was racing against the head of state, almost causing an accident for a sitting head of state. I was arrested, and this was unfair. I was in incarceration for 100 and so many days. This was unfair. He went around saying, I'm not being allowed to go on radio stations. And people believed him. And they said, oh, this one will not do what he's saying these ones are doing. But the beauty is, once you now have positions of comparison, then you can start to see. Yeah. I'll give you an example. Hakainde Hijirema, as opposition leader, went to Freedom Statue with a placard. Load shedding, what? Unga. He had a placard at Freedom Statue. He never informed the police that he was going to stand there. I was a minister then. I drove past and I saw him. There he is. We didn't send the police to arrest him. To date, he has not been arrested for that. And yet, this same angel who went across the whole country and postured as one who was anointed by God, he sees this poor young Zambian, Jason Mwanza, doing exactly what Hakainde did, exactly. Except for him, he was even more civil, because he initially even informed the police. He informed the police, on this day, I want to stage a lone protest, and the law allows me as a citizen. And the police said, we have no objection. The boy was incarcerated for more than 13 days. Under whose watch? Under the watch of Hakainde Hijirema. One thing that we ought to also emphasize is what I said earlier. You cannot have a thriving democracy where the divergent views are not being allowed to be heard. I'm sitting here and I don't know when the police will come and storm me. Okay. I'm not sure. And even when they were telling me we're having this radio program, I asked them, are you sure you want to risk KNC Radio Station? Because the moment Hakainde Hijirema and his UPND zealots hear that we're on this radio program and we're not singing praises for this self-made God, we'll be in trouble. Look at the number of people who have been arrested on trumped-up charges. Today, the courtrooms are busy. And if you go to the subordinate courts in Lusaka, the majority of people appearing in those so-called economic crimes courts are people from one political party, the Patriotic Front. If you go to court now and you see the people who are being arrested for seditious practices, it is members of the opposition. How many times has Raphael Nakachinda been arrested for speaking on behalf of the Patriotic Front? You have heard about the arrests of people like Emmanuel Mwamba. Can you imagine a person bundled up by 5 police officers, and one of the police officers goes to police and reports Mwamba and says, Mwamba beat me up? What kind of stupidity is that? Sorry for the French. But this, to me, is just a mark of a failed government. In Zambia today, even just using your phone, you write something on your phone, they will follow you. But when they cast aspersions against others, they're not arrested. I saw somebody posting insults against a particular tribe. That person is still scot-free. Others, just by saying, these people, if they are not going to allow us to visit their province, we will also not allow them to visit our province. Simply by such a reaction by one young Munia Zulu, what happened? He was arrested. And yet the boy was simply addressing an issue that was raised by somebody. Somebody threatened, we don't expect you to come into our region. And Munia was simply saying, please be careful. That language is dividing the country. Because if you say people from other regions mustn't come to your region, the reaction would be that people from that region will also say, your people must not come. And then he was arrested. The initiator of the saga is still scot-free. What kind of country is this?
So how do you create sanity? Because then, whilst you are here, I think feel safe. Because I believe that I think probably maybe we might not have that. But also it takes me to a context that, just like I asked Honorable Kamfwaya, in the context that we seemingly keep hearing these issues around, freedom of expression. You find that others will cry that, well, we did experience this during your time. It was brutal. People could not express themselves. But then it seems like this cry is louder now. How do we create sanity? As a patriotic front, how do you intend to bring sanity? And I keep saying, 60 years of independence, we're grappling with the same things, with load shedding, we're going back on the same roads. Now then, dollar dual carriage, seemingly according to the UPND, we'll see, a day of light. But it's something that you started. So how do we get to a point where when PF comes to power, they will entirely start building on new things and like going to the same issues of trying to deal with mill, fuel, debt crisis, electricity? Wonderful.
Life is work in progress. Okay? Life is work in progress. Development is work in progress. You can never ever say we have become perfect.
Yeah.
You build on. MMD built on what UNIP left. PF built on what MMD left. And what you expected, especially under UPND. Okay? Because of the lofty promises they gave to the Zambian people. You expected that UPND would not even look back and say, this is what PF are doing. No. Their work would have spoken for them. And we should have seen progress. The fact that Hakainde did not accept that the crime he committed, and I still insist it's a crime that he committed, to rest against the sitting head of state.
And not a traffic violation.
That's not a traffic violation. That's a crime by all standards. And remember, this has to be made clear.
Yeah.
He was not acquitted. He was not acquitted of those charges. Okay? He mustn't forget that. He was not acquitted of those charges. He was given a nole. And what a nole means is that the state has just decided we shall not proceed. Probably because we are still finding more information against you. And once we've got more information, we'll bring you back. Right. So Hakainde must not think that he has gone scot-free on that matter. No. Now, a person who claimed that that was not an offense, surely, what did you expect of him and his government? More tolerance. But what do we see? No tolerance at all. He doesn't even tolerate a person just saying, Bikamata Kopanshi. A person is arrested simply by saying, Tekamata Kopanshi. Nakachinda is arrested. Why? Because Nakachinda referred to Matako. But only a few weeks ago in Southern Province, what was he saying? Isn't that the same language that Nakachinda was arrested for? Matago. Huh? For him, it's okay to say Matago. For Nakachinda to say Teka Matako Panch is an offense. What level of intolerance is that? Huh? So, you can see by all means and standards that the democratic divide in Zambia, the democratic dividend that we've worked for 60 years, has been ruined by the devil that we know. This is the reason why even the United Nations Human Rights Committee of Experts, wrote that report that they did. They didn't just guess. Can you give me one reason why you think non-Zambians, experts for that matter, who have commented on democracies across the globe, why would they have anything against, what would they have against Zambia? For them to condemn Zambia? What is it that, what interest do they have?
Honorable Vic, one would argue, and I think even to Honorable Katotobwe and Honorable Kamfwaya, is that if the politicians, you our leaders, would for once maybe sit together and look at how best you can improve this country, probably Zambia will be somewhere. I'll give you a reference in relation to the current president and the former president. We tend to take it that between the two of them, they have some unsettled difference that maybe it is seen in the manner in which they relate, where, you know, the former president, I'll give you an example, at a rally, you know, he says certain things in relation to the current president. The current president responds. So it seems like maybe if the two and these political groupings can sit together, maybe Zambia can be a better place. Are we ever going to see such a scenario?
Before we bring it down to personalities,
Yes, sir.
let's talk about governance. In a parliamentary and presidential democracy such as the one that we have, there is an institution that is used for people to dialogue, and that's the National Assembly.
That's right.
We are fortunate in Zambia's National Assembly that we have members of the opposition. And political parties, which have members of parliament, would speak through their members of parliament using the National Assembly. Now the question is, are our members of parliament being heard? Are they speaking? Are they being allowed to speak? I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, a budget was presented by government. In presenting a budget, you always quote the provisions of the law that allow you as a government to present a budget. UPND went and presented a budget for a particular year and made reference to a repealed constitution. Okay? And that is an illegality. You cannot make reference to a law that was already repealed and say, I am acting based on the strength of this law, which is no law anymore. And had they proceeded, anyone would have gone to court to challenge the decisions of Parliament. Our members of Parliament stood up and said, sorry, we cannot proceed with this budget because it's premised on a repealed law. What happened? Our members of Parliament were punished. While our members of Parliament were being punished for standing up for the right, they went and amended the budget to reflect the correct provision of the law. Each time our members of Parliament stand up in Parliament to speak, what happens? They are gagged. They are stopped. When we as a political party go to Parliament and say, this is the leader that we want as a political party, Parliament decides otherwise. And you're making comparisons. Yes. Under Dr. Patrick Matebini as Speaker of the National Assembly, how many Zambians commented on decisions of Parliament? Many citizens commented. How many did you hear being arrested? None. Under this regime of people who postured to be angels, and I want to emphasize this, the reason why some of those 2.8 million people voted for Hakainde, it is because he postured as God sent. That's why they voted for him. So under these angels, how many people have been arrested for commenting on what is happening in Parliament? Several, including myself. Now, if members of Parliament are not allowed to speak, members of Parliament are abducted, such as the manner in which JJ was abducted. Members of Parliament are arrested willy-nilly. Members of Parliament are thrown out of Parliament only to be saved by the judiciary. Then what is this talking about? You're talking about? What dialogue are you talking about? If there is to be dialogue, first let's ensure that those who are elected in accordance with the Constitution of Zambia to speak on behalf of Zambians, let them be heard. Give them the freedom to express their views and express views of the people who elected them. If you gag them, don't come out and say, I am ready, and you're in church, simply because the church has said, please speak to your brother, and you say, I'm ready to speak with him. My response to that, Herman, was that, yes, President Edgar Lungu is readily available to speak, but it must be genuine dialogue.
Right. Before I turn my attention to Kamfwaya and Honorable Katotobwe and Hon Lubinda, just one thing I wanted to get your attention. I think Honorable Kamfwaya made reference to it: corruption. And I think this is one of the issues high on the agenda of even the current regime, that they are fighting the present, the current, and the future corruption in its context. I want to have your take, because obviously for a number of times your government has come in the fray as having been very highly corrupt, and corruption is what led this country what it is. And I want to have your position on that. And obviously the fact that the corruption fight is more persecution as opposed to prosecution.
The fight against corruption in Zambia died the day when statutory instrument 113, I think it is. I can't remember the number exactly, but when the statutory instrument was signed to transfer Anti-Corruption Commission, Drug Enforcement Commission from line ministries to State House, that day was the day when the genuine fight against corruption collapsed. Okay? Because corruption is not only perpetuated by people in the public service.
Right.
It's also perpetuated by people in the private service. Okay? And remember that the Anti-Corruption Commission is supposed to be operating as an autonomous body under no one's control. The moment that Hakainde said, I want you to come directly under State House, what did that mean? He made himself overall over the board of the Anti-Corruption Commission. We warned him about that. And we told them, whatever happens now in the Anti-Corruption Commission is because of you. He didn't heed our advice. And fast forward, we saw what happened. And now he even decides, people in the board were complaining, the person you have appointed is not reporting to us anymore. He's not following our instructions. And he wasn't. How could he follow instructions of a board when he's reporting directly to the president? The board is appointed by the president. The Director General of the Anti-Corruption is also appointed by the president, but the director is also told, you have free access to me as head of state, and the board will not have access to me. Who do you think will be reporting to the other? The board was totally redundant. And this is the reason why you saw them making the statements they were making. This is the reason why you saw one of the board members resigning. And then what does his reaction be? The head of the Anti-Corruption Commission, President Hakainde, what does he do? He allows his Director General to resign without any investigation. There were allegations against him. There were no investigations carried out. He's just allowed, yes, you go. Pack your bags and go. Meanwhile, he dissolves the whole board. And now, as we speak, there's no board at the Anti-Corruption Commission. Who is directing the work at the Anti-Corruption Commission in the absence of an incumbent Director General, in the absence of a board? Who is directing them? It is obviously the one in whose office that Anti-Corruption Commission is. It is Hakainde Hichilema. No wonder you have heard about all these scandals. We are hearing scandal after scandal. My colleagues, one of my colleagues told you about a company, one-day-old company. It's registered today. Tomorrow it's awarded a contract by GRZ. Where on earth does things happen like that? You get a company that has no history in mining. None whatsoever. And you're even proud, we have sold the mine to this company. We've given this mine to this company. A company that has no track record. Isn't that a scandal? You hear of a head of state. He comes back 2 years ago from Dubai. And he says, I've finished load shedding. And now I've struck a $2 billion deal. There is a company from the Emirates that is coming to set up a huge solar plant here to produce 2,000 megawatts of power. 2 years ago. All right? And now he comes back from China. Same old story. He has forgotten. Because of praise singing, hitting his chest. And I advise him, Hakainde, that chest is too small. You'll break it one day.
Right. So on a rider to what you've mentioned, not to cut into you, Honorable Lubinda. So all these, undertakings, and the president says he's the chief marketing officer for this country. So these undertakings, they're recently coming from China. We've seen, I haven't met the President Xi Jinping there, and the pronouncements that have come there. So as far as you're concerned, again, it's another, fairy tale. Zambia, China, Mulungushi is already on the fray, poised to open this year. And they say, no, PF just painted the gate and the trees. Reaction.
We know all these things very well. We know them better than what these fellows know. China Mulungushi Textiles is a project that PF started working on. We were the ones who initiated that project. Even the company that is coming, we negotiated that.
Okay.
So they're just coming to close the deal. There's nothing to celebrate about that. Nothing. You may recall, you were a Kabwe resident. There was a time when there was Marubeni that came here.
Yes.
Okay? But later on we realized Marubeni is Japanese.
Yeah.
This investment is a Chinese investment. There is no way that we can do this. We reversed that decision and said, China, please come. This is your investment. Okay? And that's how this China Mulungushi textile is coming to open. That is our work, and there's nothing to brag about. We already started the outgrower scheme. Here in Kabwe, the cotton outgrower scheme was started in 2020. It's not a new thing. Now, talking about meeting President of China, when this man was minister,
yes,
he met presidents. He wasn't president, he was minister, but he met presidents and he didn't brag.
Yeah.
Huh? I was minister, I went into Buckingham Palace. I didn't come to write stories here. I met Buckingham. Now you have a president who, just by meeting King Charles, it is a big achievement. I am the first president of Zambia to meet Crown. My photo. Is that something a president must really brag about? That I met a king?
So
I met Xi Jinping.
What should the president brag about?
The president must brag about lifting the quality of life of Zambians. He must be telling us, I told you that UPF were stealing 3 kwacha in 15 kwacha cost of fuel.
Yeah.
Now, because I've come, I've taken that 3 kwacha back. The fuel now is no longer 15 kwacha, it is 12 kwacha. Then he can brag. He must tell the Zambians, I promised you, you're going to have 3 square meals a day. Now you can even afford a 4th meal. Then he'll be proud. He must tell Zambians, I told you that Dubai, there is no rain, but they have power 24/7. For me, I'm giving you all the power. I'm reducing the tariffs because I've produced more power. Then he can be proud. He must be telling us, the PF, when they left, they produced 3 million metric tons of maize. Me, in this year alone, I've produced 6 million metric tons. Then he can be bragging. He must be telling us, these people built Sausage Airport. Me, I'm building now a hamburger airport somewhere. That's what he must be bragging about. He must not come and talk about Ndola, Lusaka Road, because that was designed by us. And actually what he has done is reduced the standard. We wanted a higher standard than this.
By reducing the cost.
What cost has he reduced?
As a matter
of fact, he has increased the cost.
And how has it increased? Because we're told that now it has been reduced to what was supposed to have been spent to so much, because now NAPSA is the concessionaire and they're the ones that are doing this role.
Now,
and I want to know about Kamfwaya to come
two
on
things
this one.
before you allow.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Kamfwaya, 2 things. Number 1, I told you, the standard has been reduced. Okay? It's the same as you going into a shop and you say, I want to buy a 3-piece suit.
Yeah.
And your friend comes and says, no, I'll buy a 2-piece suit. Not a 3-piece, I'll buy a 2-piece suit. Okay? You wanted to buy a Pierre Cardin.
Yeah.
And your friend says, I want to buy a suit made by a tailor behind the corner. You can't say you have reduced the cost. You have simply bought lower quality material. Okay? Number 1. Number 2, he has increased the cost by the fact that when you have a project such as this one, you want FDI. Okay? You want inflow, money coming from outside to come into your economy. You don't want money in your economy, money under your charge. You give to a concessionaire and you say, I'm giving you this money. Okay? You go and do the road using my money, but then I also give you 25 years to use that road and make profit for yourself. And after 25 years, you give me the road back, but you used my money. Who is paying the cost? Now, as we speak, who's collecting money from the toll gates?
Yeah.
And remember, when we started the program of toll gates, Hada Indehidilema condemned us. He said we're wasting money on those toll gates. But today, if you look at the annual budget, these toll gates are producing a hell lot of money into the treasury. And now he has decided to give away the toll gates, which are already in existence. We built them. And he's giving them away to his private friends to make money from the toll gates. So who's paying? The Zambian people. So if he's telling the Zambians that he has reduced cost, what he has actually done is to increase cost of this road on the Zambians. Because the taxpayer now is the one who's paying for this road, and that money that is generated from that road is not even going to be domiciled in Zambia. Had we gone ahead ourselves as government and brought in foreign investment, then the money in circulation would have increased, because it would have brought fresh capital, would not have taken capital out. Now, NAPSA are getting hard-earned money of workers. Workers' money is now going to finance a Chinese company. Where do you think the Chinese are banking that money? They're not banking it in Zambia. They're banking it abroad. Right. The only money they're using here is to buy gravel. For asphalt and everything, for experts and so on, the money is going out. Who is suffering? The Zambian economy.
Well, Honorable Kamfwaya, and obviously the fact that, you served in at that ministerial level. Probably the $1 million question is that, other Zambian people, with currently what you're presenting, as a former ruling party and with the partners that you're with, are the Zambian people currently ready for, a turnaround? Are they ready to, especially in this case, bring back the Patriotic Front? Is there a level slogan, sellable to the Zambian people? Bearing in mind with all these issues and more that you have presented and yet to present to the Zambian people of the shortcomings of the UPND administration.
Well, the very important question you ask, I don't know if I should address it in English, because I'll be limited. Let me just address it in a language I know best, which is Bemba. Which is it's Bemba. Morning. Ngamwaya ku Kwanagori. Unomwina mukabumwa Kwanagori. Nangu mwaya ku Makururu. Mwalasa ngabe na Zambia abalechula special man. Abalechula ukuchulisha. Abaletiro bunga bwachiramu mutengo. Filia bwali ngefe bwali ngatiriko kasako. Ego fe. Ebali abantu abomene akapi nokutila ababa given Lubinda na bakateka babo ba Edgar Lungu ne bumbali abo babwerere kapantu ebali tusunga ko bwino nga mwaya kuli ba transporta kundola mwaya be pishaba transporta baba mundola le ngi special man ababa transporta baba murusaka ba transporta baba mwakwata monokabo nga mwabe pushamuti bushefi ubuteko bwa UPND wa ishirexta washita amataba ku Tanzania nokuyakwela mining company ba FQM atebo bayeze amataba yalya ukusha ba transporta omwakwata muri kino kyalo icheno bushe ubuteko bwali kitabwino bale ba transporta nga mwabarondorere lilyashi balalanda tawe kanshi ba PF bali bwino dewo vile ama bakery bali abapanga umukate n'amabanzi muno mwina mukabwe bayisala utwa mpandito abo pamulando walo t-shirt devo vile because how do you bake bread in 1 hour? How do you bake bread ukwabula menshi how do you bake bread no mutengo wa flour uyu tukwete so balolesha balabene baumana akapati awo buteko kwena wa UPND buleya kwali babali abashitiye nama inameshi mwayashite ngombe mwaputaula muleshisha muri kabucha mwarashisha shani nama mubucha ni kwabula malati mwalasunga shani nama so bali business na yiwa devo vine kwali babali abapanga amabagra bazi bali abatupangira ko utuma window frame shani to bagra bazi mumusebo bafumya fya batinta maraiti munganda ero balewe odinga fya finepo tule amkushita mwe bale kula mayanda mwe bale kula malojes finchi mwe amkushita palya bavya 1 hour amaraiti yaiso bushiku 02 to 03 amaraiti ya mwala pangashani so bonse balyanga mwababula abantu mwababika pamo mulesa sango kwebati ichalo chatira twachula ubuchushi bwachira mu kipimo kanshi ifo tulefaya ka father fyala ifala tulekwerera kuri ka father ibere barandire mu kala dat no ka father abene barandire ku kito paradi za abacha kashi ka father ke karibwino twala tashani ifo twarasuminisha fya abantu ero nokumono kwebati deflect tikafine fya bipisha ushe kwena maini tunduru maini pya ngamopani maini munga ya pela fyo muntu ati senda kabie ukwagura umuntu kuli prakona ngukamo umuntu otamwaishi bamwaya mufumya afika tushinga nikuzo kati no senda 51% shares twaipusha 51% shares bali pire kolunga takuli twailishanya fwebena Zambia na leroti zi umuntu ali senda mai aya nokuya takwaba uyundi baire bwese shati KCM we nino mbali ne baire bakateka ku shikwa na kutita bomba baya bwesha KCM kuli uli bare kana tatwa kampere vedanta baya mubwesesha ero ine opo nafikira pani ero namonako kateka ale pele chintu kumuntu ushiripo umuntu oli mrepe chintu talipo teshinero kwisa but kateka inafuma kulia kwisa no hapa aye ndoko ya copper belt muko ndova mine kuli investor ushiri mucha
so tapalifika tumbo kama mmoja
inenshire mwana ngufimba
Kamfwaya ikusha abantu kuchira bombe bala
inenshire mwana ngufimba
no kufuna tabalefula iyo akwaishi vedanta na nomba tabalefula iyo nomba wanshi baleta.
So what is the best way? Sorry about
yo inquiry
yo na chape kulunda kokutira ati mulefe ati nishi fika fumamo topali mukwai if the workers are not being paid we're back to square one.
So what is the best way?
We still remove them.
Yes, we promised the Zambian people, and I have to say, you know, this was our making. When we told the world that time has come for us to make sure that God's endowment on Zambia must be of a benefit to Zambians, we made a big mistake. Because the ones who have been reaping and raping our resources realized their time was coming to an end. Yeah. Zambians were now going to have ownership of their resources. They ganged up against us. And I've said this many times, and I don't give no apology to this. Yeah. They ganged up against us. Okay? And they said, if these people continue, all the exploitation that we're doing in Zambia and after that in Africa will come to an end. Let us bring a friendly person who is going to allow us to continue to exploit the resources of Zambia. That is how they came and funded these people. We know this. That's how they fund. You remember how many vehicles we said were being brought into Zambia? We reported this. We said, we know these vehicles are coming in. They're being financed by foreigners. They're coming colored, painted in UP&D color. Up to now, that matter is still active. So the foreigners financed them because they wanted regime change, and they wanted regime change partly because they knew that the Patriotic Front was going to Zambianize a lot of these exploitative practices.
Right. Before we also allow, probably even, I think one or two people to also just submit any of their questions, I want to give my attention to Honorable Katotobwe. Again, the issue on the table is that the Patriotic Front now has positioned itself, and I think it's been resonating about coming back to serve, like you are saying, the Zambians from what you've described as, what is currently happening. But when a person hears PF, what should be their pattern of thought? PF, PF, What should be the Zambians' reaction to, just to mention, to say, look, PF now is positioning itself, and it has always been high on the agenda of saying, we're still here. Honorable Lubinda did mention, we're still here, we've never relented. But from your point of view, abantu ngabatira PF, chinshi abantu bayindokita expect mongalanza.
It's any society has got classes. So kugabaneso basambirira, they can resonate with PF in a different way. Kugabaneso ababomba market, they can also resonate with PF in a different way. Kugabaneso abitat by middle class. They also have their own thinking about politics and how they can, resonate with PF. But the bottom line is that the majority of our people, who are largely poor, have decided that they want PF to come back. And that's why you have a lot of hype around PF. That's why you have a lot of issues going on. So PF is under siege, PF is under attack because the masses have decided that we want to go back to PF. And the reasoning is simple. It's basic livelihood. At times, the educated people believe they know mathematics better, they're better accountants, they balance things better. No. A simple marketeer will tell you, in Engoda, tomato ya 1 pin. Na nashtisha na lepanga 2 pin. 100 kwacha na lelita lunch, 100 kwacha na lebika kuwapa libubara atwala pa market. Ainuka na shitapuna gunga na yakungana twaya. Na naisa wata tomato ya 1 pin. Na filo kushtisha na panga 200. Na imuna sign. Sipali problem hapa. Na hoto na kabili capital ya ingia. Simple, very basic, rudimentary calculation. No hidden cost to cushion, very basic. Kandi sheko kushitako msalu. Na laoda tu msalu wa 2 pin, PF na laoda msalu wa 2 pin, inde panga 3-5. Aponomba na laoda msalu wa 2 pin, na isa panga 2 pin 1. Imoni mna panga 1-5. But it's direct. In fact, whether you talk your huge economist with your PhD, that person is looking at idem PF na le panga ulupio lulifi na le kwata mu wikashi. Upon defilo, something is wrong. Something is wrong. You have the awareness monimo abasambila sana they struggle to come to terms that na ilufyenye if nasa lidoku atafia diwino. Awareness, it's very easy in life to put together 20 professors and a submission patents chimo. But it's very easy to put 2,000 awareness with basic education, or 500 or 2,000, 5,000 basubinishani. Because the reasoning is that ichichi tumala njipusha. Ide ala pisha mfionde tonton kanyane mfionde ikala nefide chitika twala pingula. Imoli mokula bakwibata inene o professor na lufyenye shafu hotel batataba given. Elo baisa jivat na lufyenye professor na ala kana tawe shafsheni. Tienfaya kufye bandu twa given. Ndio mfensoni Gusumi na fat na pantu no shasa mbirira. Eda linjebedata ba professor ide nje mutira given. Na mlesha. Na votela bambi. Parayasa piribuka ndefiro kusuminisha kweba ati fintu na fibepa. Aba nensu abe karafye ibni karafye ide ya uchushi mkombo. Ngabamona tbalufyeni bara fata auto alufyani. Aba nensu wasambiro kulanda shalufyeni kumuna tishabelenga sana ifitobu na belenga fyonse iwe ushabu skulu waisa ishwa tula given na libwino ine shaishire. Wala yumfuati lwamanu suna laka. So you have a lot of permutations in any society. But the bottom line is that in the electoral college, the majority of our people are in informal employment. That is the organization of the Zambian economy. Even the ones in formal employment, our people, they contribute less than 1%, 2% to the country's GDP. It's negligible. Our GDP is subscribed by foreign multinationals. So at the end of the day, the majority of our people, the majority of Zambians have decided that we would rather have PF back. Right. That's why you have spontaneous people showing up where they think there is a PF, figurehead, you have so much hype. And take nothing away. Historically, UNIP crashed in 1991. MMD came into power, and UNIP fizzled out. When they boycotted election in 1996, they lost, leadership in parliament. There was the official, opposition, recognized opposition. The late Dingiswa Banda was leading opposition. That era passed. Came MMD, they ran their race. When time came, PF took over, MMD fizzled out. PF has survived for 3 years. In my constituency, I don't know of anyone who's defected.
Okay.
I don't know of anybody who's defected in my constituency. So at the end of the day, as things seem now and as things look, our colleagues in government can see that the alternative government, in waiting is people.
Right. Well, quickly,
just to add on,
yes,
just to add on something, I would want to just comment on the procurement modality on the Lusaka, Dollar Duke carriageway. There are various procurement routes, which are provided by government. In this case, this was what we call a private-public partnership, a route of procurement. Now, when you advertise for a private-public partnership, procurement model, and you set your terms of how you proceed, which investor or which consortium should bid, and how much money they should come and spend, and how they recoup their money, it's fine, it's done, specifications are rolled out. You can't have a procurement model where once you've identified the would-be, a successful bidder, you change the terms. You show up and say, we'll pay you money. No. When you're bidding with a view that I'm coming on board as a consultant of contractor, financier, and everybody on board. It's a full team. It's a 10-key project. So when you come on board as a 10-key project, you must have all the multidisciplinary team with you. Right. When you win, you should have a financier and you should have syndicated finance to pump in money to do that project. Once the project is done, you start recouping your money from your tolling or from associated introduction of infrastructure along the road. Right. But you can't turn around if you are given the project and say that you, government, can you find money and pay me? The governance in terms of procurement is flawed. It's either you advertise and say anybody can bid, whoever wins this project will be paying them. So you must produce your BOQs, your specifications, everything must be rolled out because the environment must be leveled. You can't have an environment where somebody bids for this project, is awarded, on assumption that he'll bring in capital, you'll bring in funds to fund this project from start to finish. Because it's a private-public procurement. Along the way, as a government, you decide that we'll pay you. Fine, you can pay, but open up the governance of the procurement. Let people who did not bid because they had no financier. You've disadvantaged people who are competent to undertake that project because the belief was, can you fund this project? And if companies had no funding for this, it's a high-level project. The funding involved is not small. People shun away because they have no ability to syndicate finance. Right. When a consortium is picked, now you release money. On top of releasing money, now you come and give concession to the tolling. So the whole thing gets shrouded into some, it becomes very murky. How do you pay if you are building your house? I simplify it, you're building your house. I come to you and say, "Nalakulengande yenu, nkalapoka rent. Nkalapoka rent ile yako ni mpia na bikile mkamishira." Okay. Twanambo okula mwaisa funya tawe inalakulipira. So mwandipile mpia na kulenganda, but futhi na iba sinu rent nkalapoka. It doesn't work like that. So you need to choose, one side of the coin. You can't go and have both. No. Yeah. So the governance on procurement on the Ndola Lusaka road is a sham. Right.
Oh, we wait and see, obviously, because I think, like we're all saying, high on the agenda is what the Patriotic Front is proposing to come and do for the Southern people. I know that ours is a very high-powered panel, but let's allow one or two people just to weigh in on one or two questions that they don't accuse us of. So even as you call, let's just be brief. Maybe in a minute you can ask a question, introduce yourself, and then the Mwai to respond to any of your questions. Okay, 0950 60 80 70 0966 58 92 35. Thank you for joining us. Hello, to our program. Okay, we lost out on that one. 0950 60 80 70 0966 58 92 35. Our guest today, I'm privileged to be hosting our Honorable Vice President of the PF, that is VIP Mr. Honorable Lubinda, as well as Honorable Chanda Katotobwe, MP, Luapula, and Honorable Kamfwaya, MP for Lunte. Hello, thank you for joining us. Thank you. Ishna no pale tumina mkwaya. Kefa smate musonda.
Musonda we sumulishani mkwaya. Mkwaya.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
Why did you take too long for you to call up for an assembly that was supposed to elect a president after President Edgar Lungu resigned? Number two, who is the current president of the Patriotic Front? Number three, is it true before God and before man, Honorable Lubinda, you are the leader? Corruption, proceeds of crime, which is something to Russian. Which you started to execute, whatever repetitions, if you think
well, thank you so much. Just one person and you already have a mouthful of questions. But they are your people, so I'll give you a chance to respond. Let's pick another one there. Thank you for joining us. Keep trying. 0950 60 80 70. You are free to ask those questions. Thank you for joining us. Your name and Okobale Tumina.
Good afternoon, Ramajaki.
Good afternoon, Mkwai.
I'm General Chongo calling.
General Chongo, Tribe Shamkwai.
Mkwai, my vice president, my Oshukeni.
Yeah, Mkwai, Mashukeni Mkwai.
And thank you, Mkwai.
Mkwai ni General Chongo, ndezi chotera sana mwetu ngurushi, pantu, tungurushi tufayo, pantu, walimu nacho mwagomba. Kabili icho ndela ndachakutilaki, tulelo lela wa president vesu pamu kibatula ineba haka hini ikilema nili lali bakawe shunga kwa kifte kwacha. Kabili nili lali ni wakapela abantu ya 3 music bantu bajimishe balipo. Elio nili lali wakatu wese shako ya chuelo wale kilo kutila kibali wa mito menio wale teka wa president wa Lungu. Ukutila kimakunyapo mito menitri kwa chati ike sepa tuogu nili lali muku sondo wela isho tulela ndaki ya kutila ikatani ni mwentu ngurushi na tumono kutila chababa ntuwa isanogufi na kabili wa chiri wale tuwe pomu kia venga Zambia wa chiri wale chula na hapu ishakia ni wachongo.
Patriotic General Chongo. One more and then I can allow my guest to respond to those questions that are being presented. Let's keep this one. Thank you for joining us. Nobody to me now.
Wino Mkwai Mwabuka Shanna imwe.
Mutotwe na wachanda mwabuka behu.
Sana Mkwai mkulingana naishi kwa shifikile.
Atushuka fyo wino tatotela.
Mkwai, ila time one government wa Lubinda Mkwai, asiye regime. Nepa mwena abantu get mwashiri, uko mwene mwashiri Petro. Mugebe mutirere chinga bamwe abantu benshi bako murera ndo. And two, samale subsidize Petro. Nishi Mkwai.
balina mwashe chilimba so mule yumfanga mwalanda bango fila mufika akipsheni telefona mwipsheni omba baswe. Okay. Well, apparently I think you could either be using your hands free, because I think Kuno, but you were getting you very loud and clear. I don't know why you chose to give up. Thank you for joining us.
Wino mukwayi mulishani na imwe.
Ndio ngamwabora makabili mutepo amambeza mukotinangosho mweka rusa bombe mama bati kwatambia program kamandire mweka rusa ta ifisha kuire tisho mweka rusa tera matuma kamge ndio question ya kuranda kushema mwabwela kushema mapama kabla na tena mkatapo shari pati yeko tena tete.
Well, just getting even just from the few people that have called through, you're able to tell that these are matters that we've been laboring to dwell on. It seems on so many people's hearts, the issues are almost similar. Hon Lubinda, so let me start with you, and maybe you can respond to your people as they are asking this question.
Yes, let me start by answering the questions by Ramusonda. Thank you, Ramusonda. That I'm not pushing my push. I kalamba san. Nishi challenge to send in Italy. No quarter conference. Ramusonda, to my elections, my general elections, 2021. Elio twarushira my elections yaya. Kwali ubukali muchibani. Twasendere nchita ukuchita first postmortem twishire what went wrong. After that, twalisa monokutira. Number, let us reorganize ourselves. Let us rebrand ourselves before we go to the conference. Twalipangiri chubo, and I have to say it very clearly. We made a mistake by announcing that next year, 2022, tukakwata conference, because we thought kutuwakumanisha, but we didn't, because first of all, that we must go back and renew the leadership in the whole party from the lower organs. Do we still have everybody? Before doing that audit, we couldn't go to the conference. Our people still intact, and it took us time to establish how intact our structures were. We have just come out of a defeat. And after that 2021 elections, the party was also broke. We didn't have money. We had all our members of parliament, our Kamfwaya, our Chanda, were all in courts. Our councillors, more than 1,000 were in court. We had to look for money to assist our members of parliament, to assist our councillors. Tatuakwete nombesha kutulete abantu 6,000 abantu kwisa kukabwe na wherever else ukuya kwata conference. Those are the reasons why we didn't have that conference when we thought we would. Secondly, who is the current president of the PF?
Yeah.
PF panonshita yaba pabili. Kwa PF UPND na PF. PF UPND APF ya baile kolonganya abantu ba 24 October 2023. Tamwatala munapo ba musonda any country nango ni banana republic ya shani. Ya kutila pade bale chita celebrate independence yabo. Ba asuminisha ba police at opposition political party yala kwata conference. Tachatala chitika iyo, not even in the United States. You can't have a political conference or a political convention on a national day when the country is celebrating its independence. When the president of the country is hosting another president, you can't allow a conference of an opposition political party. But in Zambia, under President Hakainde, Charisa Chitika. And that is the first time in the history of Zambia, ukuyasanga wa kasalanga, ukuyasanga ifime myoto kafia police surrounding the place, the venue, here conference. Bakapokola were actually the ones, police, state police, under Grafia or Musamba, are the ones who are actually controlling the crowd. When Bamusonda, have you ever heard that was ZNBC. Bafuma ku State House, by conference, Loleda first don't start until to push ku State House, to refer to say to take cover. Was ZNBC giving so much prominence to that thing? Mwamufile polidaiva musondo kutira, mwayasa abantu ichungulo. Then the following day, akachelo. Abantu mwabasala obushiku, akachelo police varanda to have already got fingerprints for the leaders of this new party. Where has it ever happened?
In Zambia.
This is the reason why we are saying that in Zambia under President Hakainde, Tuabafe lawless. It is a lawless country. And that is the UPND-PF. Okay. And at that time I was told the president was Mauzi Sampa. But now I'm told that he has also been kicked out. Now he's Chabinga. So that is the UPND-PF. But the true PF
is which one now?
The true PF, which had its conference in May 2021, the president of that PF is President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. And his central committee. We have not had any conference. We shall have a conference where we shall renew our leadership.
Right. So the key word is renew.
Yes.
Renew.
We will renew our leadership. Okay. Yes. We're going to renew our leadership. And by renewing, I mean we will look at all the members of the party, those who want to aspire, they will aspire. Okay. And the people in the party will decide, we ought to therefore have a chairman who Kabwe, or you chairman who Central Province, and then we'll go to the conference and elect the leadership at that level.
President inclusive.
President inclusive.
Right. Just quickly, Honorable Lubinda, tell me just in the interest of time, so maybe we can deal with these issues and then wrap up the conversation.
Yes, please. I think the last question that Mr. Musonda asked is very important. We share these cases there in the court. Is it persecution or is it prosecution? We have to look at it from two perspectives. How are these matters started? How are these people selected to go and appear before court? Most of them, their names are mentioned by State House first. Ingalumbula Hakainde, this one is corrupt. Mwaishuta to yobalaikat. Area ku police. Area ku court. That is not prosecution. That is persecution. I am one of the victims of persecution. For borrowing money, which came into Zambia, by the way. I borrowed money. It came into Zambia. I used it in Zambia. I had contracts. They took me to court. Okay? And the court acquitted me. All right?
Of those charges.
The court acquitted me on all the 5 counts. They said, this man, why have you brought him here? He's not guilty. Why should I call that? Should I call that prosecution? No. That was persecution. Persecution simply because I agreed that I am going to act as president of the Patriotic Front. Let's cripple him. Let's make sure he's running between courtrooms and police. That's their agenda. Right. Now, there are other matters in court. Let us wait and see. How many are going to produce cogent evidence to convict those people?
Right. I want you to deal with the issue of Lee. I know that we spoke about the issue of debt on fuel and subsidies and so forth, and and the issue of, I think I also had this on Nigeria to say, the cries that no, if the PF regime had to come back, then we'll see colorism back at its play again. Maybe deal with these issues, Honorable Lubinda, then we can finish.
Remind me, colleagues, what was the debt in 2021?
No, sure, debt was, actually it was not a debt. That's very important. People need to understand that this fuel debt that UPND talks about is not a debt for the nation. This is a debt, or this is a balancing item which was sitting on the escrow account. Now, an escrow account is a third-party account. Okay, this account was managed by 2 entities, Ministry of Energy and Tazama. Ministry of Energy and Tazama. And they were managing it on behalf of third parties who were supplying fuel to Zambia. So if you are Chitkaniv, abaleti amafuta ku Zambia, baleta amafuta kuisa ku Tazama. Whatever. elwa ababa shitisha mafuta muno mu station ma filling station batotao bapuma banani baya mukushita mafuta kuisa kutazama ukulashitisha abantu. So ababa tushitisha mafuta pa filling station ngabaya kutazama mukushita in bulk. They were depositing money in the escrow accounts. Then Minister of Energy nabatazama, they were taking that money, paying baliaba bashitisha chinshi amafuta baliaba leta mchalo. So now at the time PF was leaving, quali balance ya $480 million. Okay. At the time Msokotwani came to the National Assembly, muku lombo ulusa waku Congo lempia pakuti walipile ishinarama yali $800 million United States dollars. So Shiraten Congress chalo, it then balancing amount which was in the escrow account, and an escrow account is not a ledger for the Republic.
Okay.
This is an account for third parties.
Interesting explanation. Eng Chanda
Over and above that, if we try to push up to where did it go? Okay? Bantu muntu nangu panganda umufya shikuta ya Kongola, but the family must know that bali Kongola ba pentinganda, bali Kongola ba tushya amabeda yanyu, bali Kongola bali shita na stove na fridge. Not that bali Kongola tashidemoneka. If we can point kufintu twa bombe where the money went, bachanda bachitalumbula Mongu Kalabo Road, that road costed us money. And where did that money come from? The same money we borrowed. Number 9 in 3 years, how much have they borrowed? In 3 years, they have borrowed more than $6 billion. Where is it? Let them show us. And yet, Kongola, instead of tubesi bawami omusebo, bayasende mpia shaba mfimu napsa. Ati sende mupango omusebo. Fila bachalo ndolola. Mwapela foreign company in pia shenu. Mwapela foreign company. Huh? Right. They have borrowed, but where has the money gone? Today, they are telling us that they're going to be sharing power 1 hour per day.
Right.
And yet, just to give you an example, if we were to Kongola, yes, but you remember there was load shedding in Zambia. There was a drought in Zambia. It's not the first time. There was a drought in Zambia when Hada India was insulting us and saying it's lack of brains. That's why there is load shedding. What did we do? We got money and went and bought power from Kapawa ship. A ship from Turkey was docked in Mozambique, at the port in Mozambique, and that power was being transmitted using the same transmission line that they are saying is challenging now. And there was power in Zambia. We never increased tariffs to the extent that they have increased tariffs. Now, can you imagine, they're even boasting, a president of a country. How can he cheapen the country to this extent that he is even boasting at Nashtama Generator 23. I've bought 23 generators to give to markets. For goodness sake, Kabwe alone has more than 11 markets. And you are boasting you have bought 23 generators for markets in the whole country. And you say, I've achieved. You go and open pit latrines on the copper belt and you say, I'm commissioning. Why are you cheapening Zambia to a papata? Sure, you cheapen Zambia to the extent that a president flies all the way from State House to go and commission toilet. When I was member of parliament, I wouldn't do it. I would leave it to a councillor. And some of my councillors were so big that they would say, but MP, I got toilet to Akula, but let the school do it themselves. Me, I'm going to open a police post. Not a toilet. Generator. Sure, president of a country. Instead of bragging that I am opening a power plant, I'm commissioning a 150 megawatt power plant that I've brought generator.
Maybe we see the commission in Kenya to put them on a solar power plant that are actually in the offing now. Maybe
2 years ago we were told.
Yeah.
2 years ago we were told in Dubai I've got an investor who's coming to put up 2,000 megawatts. 2 years along the line, no one has come. And now I've been told again, China, 2,000 megawatts. Ukulanda, walianguka.
Right.
Echo njibu kisha Basata. Basata was very true. when he said, you can't allow under 5 to govern a country. Under 5. Number 12, under 5, we have become a laughing stock. Even our neighbors now don't trust us anymore.
Because of the leadership?
Yes. There is rationing of everything in Zambia because there is rationing of leadership. The leadership we have in Zambia is rationed. And now I want to tell Hagainde, please, when you go to open parliament tomorrow, go and address the following things. Number 1, you must know that all the time when parliament is being opened, that's when the 3 wings of government meet. The judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. And the heads of these 3 institutions are always present. When he opens parliament tomorrow, Dr. Mumba Malila is not there. He has a duty. He himself, not Minister of Health, he himself as head of state tomorrow must tell the Zambian people the circumstances surrounding the accident of Chief Justice Mumba Malila. He must also tell us if there were any conversations between himself and Justice Mumba Malila. He must tell us what conversations were they having. Right. Number 2, he must tell the Zambian people critical issues that he has been raising. African to date, he has not explained to the Zambians, he has not explained to the SADC region, he has not explained to the African Union what is African doing in Zambia. This is the reason why some of the neighbors are saying, no, Zambia is militarizing itself against us.
So the rift between Zambia and Zimbabwe?
Exactly. Look at how Zambia's foreign policy is becoming something to laugh about. The respect that Zambia has had as a non-aligned country, a leader in the non-aligned movement, is now faded. We're now aligned.
Right.
Why?
Well,
he must also go and explain to these parliamentarians, and through them he must explain to the Zambian people. Can he disclose the content of the critical minerals deal he entered into with the UK? What is that about? We want to know. Those minerals are not his. Those minerals are for Zambia and Zambians.
Right.
We have a duty to inquire from him. He must also tell us, we heard that there is 72 billion that is coming into the country for 6 million hectares of land. He must explain to these parliamentarians why he's entering into such deals without informing Parliament.
In Luapula.
Where is he getting the money, the power from?
Right.
We're also told that they're coming to Zambia to come and start assembling aeroplanes. In Zambia, you assemble aeroplanes. Who's going to buy those aeroplanes? You assemble aeroplanes in a country where there is load shedding. How will you assemble them? I mean, to assemble an aeroplane requires high tech. You require perfect power. Not this imperfect power that we have. Wow. Can he explain all these things? He must make sure that he tells the Zambian people how this company called New Groko, which is supposed to be buying maize at 11,000 kwacha per metric ton. And yet for Zambians, he's paying 6,000 kwacha per metric ton. Right. Why is he willing to pay double the price which is paying Zambians? He wants to pay this company, which is only 1 day old. These are the things he must go and address in Parliament. He finally must also tell us, what is it that he wants done to Zambia's democracy when he himself has become the judge and the jury? That he can sit and say, PF no more. PF nalawa kama pamkush. Who is he to come up pamkush?
Wow. Well, it seems to me that I think there's a lot really to introspect, and I think we've covered quite a lot of ground, and I wish that probably we can have another opportunity as rare as this to interact with the leaders that we have today. And again, it's a rare privilege, but we're going to have to end somewhere, and that somewhere is now. I know that we could have allowed to accommodate as many people, but you get the feeling that I think the conversation really has been quite elaborative. We've covered quite a lot of ground. Honorable Mutotwe, let me begin with you. At the end of the day, when all is said and done, the many Zambian people asking themselves, they want a better life for themselves. We can talk about all these macro and micros and all these things, but at the end of the day, the ordinary Zambian, but it seems Zambia lies with you, our political leaders. Should we entirely depend on the fact that whilst UPND is there, our next savior in this context is the Patriotic Front?
it's been an honor for me to speak alongside the Vice President of the Patriotic Front Party. And to just answer your question, I think that this is time for leaders to be more empathetic. The leaders need to feel for people because people are suffering. People are going through a lot. I think that the issues, some of them already very well established on this program, are too severe for the people. Listen, these are people who have eaten mealie, which is poisonous, and these are people who, when they fall sick, will go to the hospitals where there is a lack of quality care because there are no medicines, and all of these things are as a result of poor governance, as a result of corruption, as a result of leaders not caring for people. So I am just calling upon leaders to be more empathetic. Those who are there now, feel for your people. These people put you where you are in order for you to make their lives easier, and if you don't do that, you are acting against them. Right. Once we come in, led by this group of people, we will create a better country. There is no question. I think our experience is immense. Our understanding of how to govern the nation is way better, and when we return, I'm sure the Zambian people will be better.
Honorable Katotobwe, again, as far as we're concerned, you've given yourself, you put yourself on the chopping board. You're in the firing region. Many Zambians are ready to fire.
Absolutely.
Are you ready again as a Patriotic Front to receive the blunt that while it's the situation as you described it is, you will come and make it better? Can the Zambian people trust that?
Absolutely, absolutely. The core of the PF is the ideology. The PF is a pro-poor party. By virtue of being a pro-poor party, at the center of everything is the welfare of the majority of our people who are largely poor. And PF has a demonstrated record of not only showing sympathy, but going a step further to uplift the welfare of the majority who are impoverished. PF has a history of the infrastructure development. In this world, at this the moment in time, there's it's normal to borrow. It's normal to grow the economy. Zambia has more than adequate resources to go on the international market. It's a multipolar world. There are so many options where Zambia can access capital to make sure we are not bystanders in the fourth industrial revolution.
Right.
As you know, there is the fourth industrial revolution taking place, and we can't afford to keep watching the first industrial revolution, but behind, second, third, now and the fourth. In conclusion, my final remarks, sorry to digress a bit.
No, it is well.
My hope, or the people, the many Zambians out there, is that our sacred day, the Independence Day, as alluded to by our Vice President, has been scarred. It's a sacred day. Who would want the normalization? We are racing towards Independence Day next month. How do we view it? On a sacred day like Independence Day, it gets scandalized and mad in mad. Ukulamfya inshikunkulu ya chalo. Inshikunkulu elo chalo chapukiro buntungwa. Eyo moya lamfya. You can't have this thing go in perpetuity. Whoever is responsible must resolve that. This scandalizing of our Independence Day must be resolved ahead of the next Independence Day. Secondly, I would want to belong to a generation of leaders that contributed towards uplifting the welfare of our people. We have enough resources as a country, to uplift the welfare of our people. Our people are not lazy. They do not get the opportunity and the necessary requisite financing for them to succeed.
Right.
Lastly, I would want to echo sentiments by the 6th Republican President in Zambia, that our colleagues in the public service must do the correct thing. If you're doing the correct thing, you can sentence people to jail correctly because they're guilty.
Right.
But if you come and say that I came under pressure and you made a decision as heavy as sentencing, taking away the liberty of innocent people, definitely, you'll be visited. Whichever government comes into power, they'll have to look at your conduct. Under cabinet office, there's a code of conduct. Implementing illegal extraction, you yourself, you are liable to prosecution. So you can't be ordered because your superior says, go and kill that one, you go and kill a person, you'll be jailed. So at the end of the day, I would want to echo the sentiments of our sixth department president that public workers must do the correct thing. Let justice prevail.
Right.
If you do the correct thing, you are insulated from all future circumstances because you acted professionally and you did your job according to the specifications in your detail of work.
Finally, Honorable Vice President, I think Honorable Lubinda, when all is said and done, I think at the end of the day, the many Zambians want to finally hear, of course, you assure them that all these things, as you put it, will come to an end. Again, in your leadership. And I'm glad that even as we started, when you mentioned that probably we're not even sure that you're protected, but I think I'm glad to reach the point where so far we can agree that I think we've had a very decent conversation without any interruption. But what's your final conclusion to the many Zambian people?
I also hope that I'll drive out of Kabwe safely.
No, you will as you drove in.
Because, if a bishop can be attacked in his own office, it raises goose pimples.
No, we pray that it is over.
Let's pray.
Yeah.
Let's pray.
Your message to the Zambian people?
My message to Zambian people is that, look, there is no better teacher than oneself. You can have many lecturers, but you are the best teacher of yourself. Meaning, experience teaches a lot. We're very happy that we were in opposition 10 years. Then we went into government 10 years, and now we're in opposition again. I want to reiterate what I said to my fellow party members, that the crying about the loss of 2021 is over. It is now a celebration. A celebration because it has given the Zambian people an opportunity to judge us against reality. Because in the 2021 elections, we were judged against a mirage. We are not being judged against reality. Now the Zambian people can judge us against the reality. And because we have the experience, because we learned our bitter lessons, obviously we're going to provide much better governance than we did in the last 10 years that we're in government. The issue of cadres, like my colleague said, is in two sectors. One, it is the cadres in the public service. The cadres in the public service. Indeed, the clarion call by Edgar Lungu must be reiterated. Do what you're employed to do. Don't do things because you're coerced to do them when you know you're doing a wrong thing, because your actions today shall be remembered in future.
Even in your homes?
Even in your homes. Yes, even in your home. You can imagine if today a judge, a magistrate, decides to condemn a person to imprisonment on false grounds. Even in their grave, they will go without guilt.
Right.
So do the right thing so that your conscience is clear. And nobody besides yourself will crucify you. You will crucify yourself. Your conscience alone is going to eat you. But with regard to cadres in the party, yes, we learned our bitter lessons. Yes, we saw our people doing what they were doing. But we have learned from that. We will do whatever is within our means. And I'm sure that Zambians at large can see that where PF are congregating, there is peace. Where PF cadres are, there is harmony. There is no fracas taking place. Right. Because even our cadres, they themselves have come to the realization that probably some of them had become too big-headed and they were abusing their positions. But these are lessons that we must accept to have learned. Right. And in closing, two things that I forgot to mention about what I expect President Hakainde to do is to go and explain to the Zambian people his new cut deal over the Kasumbalesa and the Chirundu border posts, which he wants to give to private people. What is his intention? What is Zambia's benefit from that? Because now Zambia Treasury is getting money already from Chirundu. He's getting money from Kasumbalesa. Why does he want to concession things that, as a matter of fact, were already concessioned, and the concession for Kasumbalesa came to an end? Why does he want to renew it? And finally, I want to appeal to members of parliament they must continue to fight against Hakainde's desire to bring back the Minerals Commission Bill, where he wants to prioritize non-Zambians in mining and non-Zambians in employment in mines. They must insist that the Minerals Commission Bill must prioritize Zambians for employment, prioritize Zambians for supplies to mines, and prioritize Zambians in ownership of mines. Thank you very, very much indeed.
It is a rare occasion. I know that we spent probably more time than would have been anticipated, but I think it's a rare occasion to have such a panel in one sitting. We might not have it, but I know that in future, very soon, we should be talking to a panel of this magnitude as well. Honorable Mutotwe Kamfwaya is been obvious at Lunte MP, as well as Honorable Chanda Katotobwe MP for Luapula Province, and obviously constituency, but I'd like to know it, and also Vice President for the Patriotic Front, Honorable Hon Lubinda, in so many portfolios. Thank you so much. Also in the company of the party leadership here in Central Province, as well as Kabwe, I want to thank them for facilitating this conversation. And I know that I'm sure we've gotten the things that were needed to be gotten. We'll be watching the space, we'll be following you, so that all these things that you've spoken about, we've kept a record, by the way. My name is Herman Machacha. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. From me and the entire team, we say God bless you, take care, and until next time, Dwaima, Peter.
God bless. God bless you.